Okay, moving on to chapter 22. Here we have performing grief, Purcell, and early opera. Now, the components of early opera are very interesting. This is a new genre, and it's very important. It's pretty much the basis of the Baroque era. And in the opera, we have a large scale sung drama. So, with the music from the Renaissance, we move to more a combination of the text, the melody, the drama, all of those parts of art, all in one piece of performing experience. So this is a large scale. We have a large orchestra, we have choruses, we have soloists, we have multiple songs being sung, and so we have the vocal and instrumental music parts. We've got the poetry, we've got the acting and the scenery and the costumes and just all of that excitement. And the opera used to be at this time the entertainment for the elite and the aristocrats and the kings and of that time. And there are a lot of strong emotions that were shown through the music, having this hyper reality. Now, the principal components, we have the recitative, which is a declamatory vocal style. So you can hear the words being spoken, but they're sung on a few pitches. So if I were to say, "The cat in the hat was walking down the street," it's not a melody that's being sung, but it's literally the someone declaring the action or what's going on. So this recitative is telling the plot, telling what the action is happening during the opera, and it moves the opera forward. So any action, any events that are happening, that's what's being carried out through the recitative. Then we have the aria, and this is a lyrical song where it's highly emotional and the character that's singing dwells on intense emotion. Now, if the recitative is the play-by-play, summary, synopsis, the recitative is kind of like the, stop time, like the, what is that called? Where the actor kind of starts talking to the audience, but like the rest of the scene is like frozen. It's kind of like the breaking that wall. Is it third wall or fourth wall? Whatever, breaking that wall, and everything's sung out. It's out of time, or out of it's like a timeout from the action that's happening. And there's a release of tension in the action. So the recitative is building all the tension, talking about what's happening, all the action that's going on, and then when we get the aria, it kind of releases all that tension, and we get to see all the different emotions. And it's sung out of the opera context. Now, the ensemble numbers, we have duets and trios and quartets. So, depending on the parts of the opera, these ensemble numbers are kind of like little interludes. Maybe if scenes are being changed or something, but they're just little things to inject music while transitions are going on. Now, the chorus usually backs up the solo voice and comments on the action. So think of it like the Greek chorus, where they're all the voice of one, but they're kind of either talking to the main actor, but the actor's not hearing it, but they're summarizing what's going on, or they're responding to what's going on. And the orchestra, they set the mood. Now, in the beginning of the opera, we have an overture, where it's the orchestral introduction, and usually in the overture, we see little snippets or motives from the opera present in the overture. And then we have the sinfonias, which are these interludes that happen in between the scenes, or of the acts. But those are the instrumental sections. It's very similar to musical theater, where you have, your entr'acte, where they play melodies that you'll be hearing throughout the musical, all in the beginning, to kind of get your ear used to what you're going to hear. Now here we have a picture of an opera performance at the Teatro Argentina in Rome. This is in 1729, and it was portrayed by Giovanni Paolo Panini. Now the next part of the opera is the libretto, or the text or script of the opera. Now, in early opera in Italy, this was the outgrowth of the Renaissance theatrical traditions, because usually these would be performed at royal weddings or ceremonial occasions. And these were lavish spectacles with scenic displays. Now, we have the spread of the opera, and our good old friend Claudio Monteverdi, he was an early Italian opera composer. Now, two pieces here, Orfeo, which was created in 1607, and the Coronation of Poppaea in 1642. And the opera, as it began to expand past the upper elite and aristocratic styles, moved from the palace to the public, and it became widespread entertainment for everybody. And the first public opera house was in Venice, and the accompanying orchestra ensemble became the standard for the operas. And the Italian style opera spread throughout Europe. So even though at this time during the Baroque era, the different countries started to have their own national identity with their culture and their arts, the Italian style opera became the standard throughout. So even if you were a German composer, you still wrote in the Italian opera style with the Italian text. Now, in the turn of the 18th century, this became really popular in Western Europe. And however, there was a holdout. France rejected the Italian style because they wanted to be French. So they had their own national style, which used court ballets and more of the classical tragedy traditions. So this was in Italy. Now we have opera in England, and the style of the opera is called the masque, where we have stage plays. And this was a vocal and instrumental music with poetry and dance. This was very popular among the aristocracy. However, with the Commonwealth that was going on from 1649 to 1660, stage plays were forbidden by the Puritans. And however, they allowed plays set to music presented as concerts, but they didn't like the whole production of the opera or the dancing and all that stuff, because it was the opera and the stage plays were seen as temptations from the devil, and Puritans, were very strict about that. Our first English composer is Henry Purcell, and he was around from 1659 to 1695. And he was an English court musician, composer, organist, and singer. And the style that he wrote, he assimilated the Italian, French, and English styles, which made him very popular. And his output, he created masques and operas, sacred and secular vocal music, as well as instrumental music. And here we have a picture of Purcell, that curly hair. So one of Purcell's pieces that we're going to look at is Dido and Aeneas. And this was presented in a girls' school in London. And it was based on the episode in Virgil's Aeneid, which was an ancient Roman epic. Now, because this was a well-known epic, like Homer and the Iliad, a lot of people already knew the plot. So the librettist didn't have to explain all the details of the storyline, and because everyone was familiar with it. And so then they could really spend their time on dealing with the emotions of the singers and the power with that text. So Dido's Lament is one of the most powerful models of female grief. And the main characters are Aeneas, who is the adventuring hero, Dido, the queen of Carthage, Belinda, Dido's serving maid. Now, Aeneas was coming home, or no, not coming home. He was on an adventure, a journey. He had a specific journey he was supposed to go on, and his ship ended up getting damaged on the shore of Carthage, and he fell in love with Dido, the queen, and she fell madly in love with him. And then, Aeneas realized that he still needed to fulfill his destiny and the job that he was supposed to do, and so he had to leave. And as he was leaving, he didn't really say goodbye to Dido, and she kills herself in the woes of her grief. And like I said before, male composers, they because it's seen through their eyes, they have this way of seeing how women are and how they should be presented in the theater. And so Dido's Lament is one of the most extravagant, over-the-top kind of like, woe is me arias. And it's a very powerful. And here we have a painting of the conqueror Aeneas, who's greeting Queen Dido of Carthage. And this is from Dido and Aeneas by Jacopo Amigiani. Now the plot summary, like I was saying before. Aeneas is shipwrecked at Carthage. And then Aeneas and Dido fall in love. The gods command Aeneas to found Rome. That was what his duty was. And grief-stricken, Dido takes her own life. Now the flames from a funeral pyre, they light the way for Aeneas' ship. So remember those, back in the day, the funeral pyres are like the big stacks of wood that, surround the corpse, and, either are shot with bow and arrow with flames, or just, lit up, and that's how they would send off their dead. So Dido, dies, and, the flames from her funeral pyre help Aeneas go on his way. So for listening guide 12, we have Purcell's Dido and Aeneas. This is from Act 3, the opening and lament. Now in Act 3 opening, the style is of a hornpipe, and we call that a Scotch snap, where the rhythm is a short long, like da 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 da. It has that characteristic, kind of like a hunting type call. Now the singing is responsorially, where we have the solo voice and then the men's chorus. So the solo would sing, and then the men's chorus would sing after, repeating what the soloist sung. And we have an underlying chromaticism. So the use of that, do, 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 that chromaticism, it foreshadows Dido's Lament. So the use of that chromaticism in, the context of something being major or minor, adds that kind of dramatic effect. And, in this case, we're foreshadowing her lament. It could be something sinister and something else. But that chromaticism is something that we start to hear a lot more in the Baroque era. Now, the recitative, remember, this recitative is telling what's going on in the story. And the title of it is called Thy Hand, Belinda, which was sung by Dido. And this is where Dido decides her fate. And it is accompanied by the continuo only. In the aria, When I Am Laid in Earth, is Dido's lament. And it's a lyrical aria in two sections. We have the A section, B section, so it's that binary form, A, B, B. And we have a slow triple meter. And it's sung over 11 statements of the ground bass. Now, the ground bass is this chromatic descending bass line. And this was a symbol for grief in Baroque music. All right, here we have the breakdown from the listening guide for Dido and Aeneas, Act 3, opening and lament. And in the opening, we have a jaunty and playful tune. The rhythm is a sprightly tempo, so it's pretty lively, meaning fast. And we have a triple meter, and we use that Scotch snap dotted figures. So the short, long, short, long, short, long, hearing that really sounds really lively. The form is a strophic form with instruments, solo voice, and chorus, and then chorus. The performing forces are string orchestra with solo voice and chorus. Oh yeah, in the harmony, we have a major key. Now in the Baroque period, we're starting to see a definitive major and minor key. And so with this piece, we have a major key with chromatic foreshadowing of the lament. Now for the recitative and the lament. The recitative is with half-step movement, so they're really small intervals. And then we have the more lyrical aria. And, recitative, think of the articulation of text. The rhythm is a free recitative, so there isn't any meter going on, to give us a emphasis of pulse or anything. And then after the recitative, we move into a slow aria triple meter. The aria harmony is based on a repeated chromatic ground bass. And remember that bass line, the lowest note that you hear is moving down stepwise, half steps. Chromatic. The form in the aria is in two sections, each repeated. So we have the AA and then BB, and it's over the same, over the ground bass. And the performing forces are Baroque period instruments with solo voice. And then this is the Dido's lament, When I Am Laid in Earth. Now look at the bass line here. We start with a G, then go to F sharp, F natural, E, E flat, D, B flat, C, D, and then down to G. Now that descending chromatic bass line in itself just sounds very like losing energy, really sad. So the use of this really added to the expressive emotion in this song. And that's it for chapter 22. Moving on to 23.